You finish. And then something shifts. Not slowly, instantly. 1 second you are completely consumed by one feeling, and the next second a completely different one crashes over you. Shame, regret, that quiet, heavy sense that you just did something wrong. You might not even know why you feel it. You might not believe you should feel it, but there it is anyway, sitting in your chest like a weight you didn't ask for. This is one of the most universal and least talked about psychological experiences that almost every person has felt at some point. And it has almost nothing to do with morality. It has everything to do with your brain chemistry, your evolutionary wiring, and the hidden conditioning your mind has been running since childhood. Once you understand the real reasons behind it, the guilt starts to lose its power over you. Here are the 7 reasons your brain makes you feel guilty after masturbation. Reason number 1. The dopamine crash is real and it hits immediately. During arousal and climax, your brain floods itself with dopamine, the same chemical released during eating, winning, and achieving. It's one of the highest natural dopamine spikes your nervous system can produce. But dopamine doesn't stay elevated. The moment after release, your brain swings hard in the opposite direction. Dopamine levels drop sharply below baseline. This is called the dopamine refractory period, and neuroscientist Andrew Huberman has described it extensively in his research on the brain's reward circuitry. That crash, that sudden dip, doesn't feel neutral. It feels like a low. And your brain, searching for an explanation for why you suddenly feel deflated, reaches for the most available narrative. You did something bad. You should feel ashamed. The guilt isn't a moral verdict. It's your dopamine crashing and your brain mislabeling the sensation. Reason number 2. Prolactin enters your bloodstream and literally changes your psychological state. Immediately after orgasm, your brain releases a hormone called prolactin. Prolactin is responsible for what many people call post-nut clarity, that sudden, almost jarring shift in perception where everything you were just thinking about seems different, even absurd. Research published in the journal Biological Psychology confirmed that prolactin surges sharply after orgasm and suppresses dopamine activity for a sustained period. The result is a temporary but measurable shift in your mood, your priorities, and your self-perception. You don't just feel different, you chemically are different in that moment. And if guilt or shame is anywhere in your psychological environment, prolactin creates the perfect neurological conditions for it to surface and feel extremely real. Reason number 3. Your brain was conditioned to associate this act with shame long before you could critically evaluate that association. Psychologist Ivan Pavlov demonstrated that the brain can be conditioned to produce automatic emotional responses to specific stimuli without any conscious involvement. If you grew up in an environment, religious, cultural, familial, where masturbation was treated as sinful, dirty, or wrong, your brain formed a hardwired association between the act and the feeling of wrongness. These associations don't disappear when you intellectually reject them. They live in a deeper, faster part of the brain than rational thought. The amygdala processes emotional memories and conditioned fear responses in milliseconds, long before your prefrontal cortex has a chance to step in with a logical counterargument. So even if you consciously believe there is nothing wrong with what you just did, your amygdala fires anyway, because it was trained to. Reason number 4. Cognitive dissonance creates a friction that your brain interprets as guilt. Cognitive dissonance is the psychological discomfort that arises when your behavior conflicts with your beliefs or self-image. Psychologist Leon Festinger first identified this phenomenon in the 1950s and found that humans are deeply motivated to resolve the tension between what they do and what they believe about themselves. If you hold any internal belief, conscious or not, that positions masturbation as incompatible with the kind of person you want to be, your brain will generate discomfort every time the behavior occurs. That discomfort is not the same as guilt about a moral wrong. It's the friction of internal inconsistency. Your brain is trying to close the gap between who you did and who you think you are. It does that by generating a feeling that pushes you to change something, and that feeling presents itself as guilt. Reason number 5. Evolution wired your brain with a reproductive prioritization system that temporarily resets after orgasm. For most of human evolutionary history, the point of sexual arousal was reproduction. Your brain evolved a system where arousal dramatically elevated the perceived importance of the sexual goal, and completion immediately downregulated that urgency. This isn't metaphorical. Neurologist Serge Stolaru and colleagues published neuroimaging research showing that specific brain regions associated with motivation and desire show measurable reductions in activity following orgasm. The act that moments ago felt like the most compelling thing in the world now registers as completely neutral or even slightly aversive. That whiplash from high urgency to zero urgency can trigger a mild form of post-goal attainment depression. Your brain accomplished what it was driving toward, and now that the drive is gone, the default emotional tone drops. That drop reads as guilt. Reason number 6. Shame and guilt activate overlapping neural circuits with social exclusion and threat detection. Neuroscientist Matthew Lieberman at UCLA has demonstrated that social pain, the feeling of being judged, excluded, or seen as unworthy, activates the same neural regions as physical pain. Guilt and shame are fundamentally social emotions. They evolve to regulate behavior in group living humans by making social transgressions feel painful. When your brain experiences guilt after masturbation, it isn't just registering a private feeling. It is activating the same survival machinery that would fire if you were caught doing something socially unacceptable. Even in complete privacy, your brain is still running a social calculation, and the guilt follows automatically. Reason number 7. The guilt loop itself becomes self-reinforcing over time. This is perhaps the most important reason of all. Every time you experience guilt after masturbation, your brain strengthens the neural pathway connecting the act to the shame response. Through a mechanism called Hebbian plasticity, summed up by the phrase, neurons that fire together, wire together, repeated pairing of an action with an emotional consequence makes that pairing progressively faster and more automatic. The guilt stops being a reaction and starts being a reflex. And here's what makes it particularly insidious. The shame often increases the urge as a coping mechanism, which leads to the behavior again, which leads to more shame. Patrick Carnes, in research on compulsive behavior cycles, identified this loop where guilt and urge feed each other in an escalating pattern that has nothing to do with the original moral question and everything to do with neurological conditioning. So here's where that leaves you. You finish. The shift happens. That familiar weight arrives. But now you know exactly what it is. It's a dopamine crash mislabeled by your brain. It's prolactin reshaping your momentary psychological state. It's conditioned shame firing from a part of your brain that doesn't speak in logic. It's cognitive dissonance running a background error check. It's your evolutionary reward system resetting. It's social threat machinery running a simulation you never consciously approved. And it's a neural loop that has been strengthened by every repetition. None of that is a moral verdict. It's neurochemistry. It's conditioning. It's the brain doing what it was built to do. You finish. The shift happens. And now, for the first time, you understand exactly what that shift is. The guilt doesn't disappear overnight, but understanding the architecture of it is the first step to not being controlled by it.